Okay. So we're back in the episode 2 of the introduction to AAA materials. I always say it in plural. I don't know why the name is AAA material, not materials, but it doesn't matter. So let's see what we have here. Now, this is the current texture or the current mask. And now I want to play a bit with other sources just so we can see what they are, and later on we'll decide which one of them or a few of them we'll be using for this design. So let's unplug this here. So we have only this white, the kid character or the rabbit character, and let's start from the top. So I'll just quickly go through a few of these. So I'll drag this one, I'll plug it, actually I'll duplicate this texture coordinate, Shift D, and plug it here, and then I'll move it a bit lower, this principal BSDF, and plug this here. So these are the color dots, and of course we now see black spots. Now if we would plug this second output, we would see something similar but still different, and the third output just colors here. We can combine these three, so we would use, for example, Shift A, mix color, and plug it here. You would see this, but if we use this mask as a factor, you get something like this, which is rather cool, I think. You can also use this soft mask, so you get something like this. But I prefer to work with sharper mask and then switch to the soft if necessary. Okay, now since we have added this mapping node in the previous video, so whatever vector-based node you put before the source, you are able to control the mapping with it. So of course you can move these up and down, rotate or scale. You can get some very interesting patterns. So if I would copy this symmetry X, we would get something like this, see, which I think is very interesting. Now let's move on. I'll remove this for now. Let's use this one. Same thing, we're gonna plug it here and then plug this here as a color source this time. And now we can play with the scale, details, linearity, so distortion, and so on. And you can also combine these other two options. So this is also noise. For example, if you want to combine two noise sources, you don't have to get two noise textures. You have it here, and Voronoi mapping as well. Now I use these three the most, and that's why they are combined in this node group. Same as the previous one, and this is a Voronoi, scale, details, linearity, randomness, without width. Let's join everything into a frame and change the color of it to something like this. Let's see what else we have here. This is a mask box. What it does, if you could imagine a box in a 3D space, but not an object, more like a 3D texture, that would be it. So it's actually a 3D mask. So it's a cube which lives inside this object, if of course we would use this object texture coordinate. So if we plug it here, you might not see it right away. We'll see. Okay, so here it is at the bottom. Now, if I use the mapping now and set everything to 0, you will see that it covers everything. Of course, we can scale it like so, and we can move it up. So if I would rotate the kid character, you would see that it's actually a cube from here to here. So for example, if I would want to isolate his head, at least partially, I would move this cube up, and then I would rotate it on the x-axis, like so. The problem, of course, is that the center is not in the center of the cube. We can fix that if we would use the TRS node, because TRS node rotates around the center, but I think, we can get away with this now. See, let's add a bit more rotation here. So it seems that we can't do much more than this, but if we go here and add a bit of softness. This cube gets, the corners get kind of beveled. Now, if we move it down a bit, you see that we could, with a bit of adjusting, we could isolate even something that's complex as the head inside the hoodie, peeking outside the hoodie. I'll play with it a bit more just to see if I can get a better result, maybe scale it a bit. Definitely wasting too much time here, but it's kind of fun. Okay, let's move on. Now, the next one is Directional Mask. I use this almost exclusively for dust when I want to add dust to my object or the object in a scene. So let's move it here. You see, you get dust right away. And also, you can play with the coverage, you can play with the details. Kind of cool. Now, we also have dots here, similar to the color dots that we've seen previously, but still a lot different. Let's plug it here. Right now you don't see anything because we've plugged mapping in the wrong socket. So here they are. Now you can play with the amount, scale, and you can also make it more sharp. Very useful. Of course, we can use symmetry with this and also specials that we've seen in the previous video. Now let's also see what does this mask linear do. It's similar to the mask directional, but it's not based on an object normals. So it's just like this. And also we can change sharpness. With the mapping node, you can also adjust the position, rotation, and whatnot. Mask radial. So if we see it from the top, press 7. You see how it looks. Now, let's make it a bit sharper, like so. Let's change the slice size, make it also a bit sharper so I can just see what's going on when I rotate it. I think I will first rotate it on Z-axis, set everything to default again, Z-axis, like so. Okay, and then let's rotate it on Y-axis, -90. And then let's bring it up a bit. This time we have to use Y-axis, like so. And let's move it on X, like so. So you see, this could be, for example, one of the ways you could use this texture. Now, if we go and play with the slicing, you see what we can achieve. Let's go on. I'll just add a bit of gradient just for fun. Let's go on. Let's see what else we got. We got this mask rectangular. It's very similar to the box, but at the box you can limit it on all 3 axes. Well, this one goes through. So what I mean is this. Let me just plug this one directly to the previous radial mask, and then I'll use this one for mask rectangular. Okay, now let's plug it here. And you see this mask obviously goes from here, you can see this square, all the way to infinity, both sides. So what this means is you can change its scale on X and Y, right? But you can't limit it on Z axis. And this is actually useful sometimes. For example, you can construct a cross with this rectangular mask and then have it on the front and the back of a t-shirt or a vehicle or something like that. Of course, if it's asymmetrical, you then need to use it with symmetry node. So we can set this back to default, this one, and one more time we can play with the Y. The next one is mask spherical, same as the mask box. You can think of it as a sphere in a 3D space, or a sphere mask inside or outside this object here, which is the kid character. So can use this one. Let's move it here so it's closer to the principled shader, and you see it's at the bottom. We can make it smoother or sharper, and you can also change the scale right here. Now, same thing if I would use, for example, TRS instead of this. Connect it with the texture coordinate here, and let's this. Now you see that if I would move it on the Z axis like so, and maybe on the Y axis, you would see it appearing. So it's actually a sphere that's going inside or outside of this object. Now let's move it up a bit more. Again, we can scale it right there, and you get this sort of a spherish looking design on the hoodie. It's not the real circle as you would expect it to be because of the shape of this surface here. So it kind of intersects with the surface, and the shape is dependent on the surface that it intersects with, that sphere. And then we can also check the last one, which we already did in the previous video, but I just want to show you other ways that you can play with it. Let's duplicate this one. Actually, no, we don't need this. I'll just connect it directly to the texture coordinate and plug it here. So there you have it. Now what I wanted to show you is that if I add this symmetry X here, you get the same result that we've seen in the previous video. But this time, if I would use TRS after the symmetry X, and if I would rotate it in the Y axis, I can get this kind of effect, which I think is really cool. So we can move it up a bit and rotate a bit more, like so. So in combination with other masks that we've seen previously, you can see that we can isolate certain areas of, for example, we could cut this design, we could cut it here. You would get something that resembles a shirt print, right? Okay, so this is that for this video. In the next one, we'll go after the final design and hopefully finish it. Cheers!